What is up, you guys? So we're approaching the end of the year here, and I'm big on reflecting where I started at the beginning of the year and where I'm at the end of the year, and not only on a yearly basis. I tend to do this specifically with my finances on a quarterly basis. I'll track my net worth. I do run an income statement every month just to see how much money I made and how much I spent, how much I saved, how much I invested, just to make sure, of course, I'm headed in the right direction when it comes to my overall finances. But I also want to be able to see any bad habits that maybe I'm developing. Maybe I'm spending too much money going out, or whatever the case may be. So I'm big on not only tracking my personal finances, but also reflecting on it and using that information and that data to help improve my personal finances, as well as, and probably more importantly, my habits when it comes to spending money. So what I did is, before I'm recording this, I kind of took a look at my finances at the beginning of the year, and I'm comparing them to the end of the year, specifically my income, but also my net worth. And I kind of want to go over that to a certain extent with you guys, talk about that again, talk about where I was at, January 1 versus where I'm at the beginning, or excuse me, at the end of the year here in December. So without further ado, let's get right into this. So overall this year, my net worth has increased by about 10%. Now, this could be better. It could definitely be worse. I'll say, I guess I'm content with it. Obviously, I would love for it to be a larger number. I will say, if it was negative, if my net worth decreased, I would obviously not have as much optimism as I do with that 10% increase. But I say that with an asterisk, and here's why. Last year, 2024, I looked at those numbers as well. My net worth increased by 50% in 2024. Now, that's a lot greater increase than the what seems to be a measly 10% increase this year. And I took a moment to think about that. Let's figure out why. Now, there's plenty of different factors. I do have a pretty decent size exposure to the market, so the market can play a role. However, my portfolio has been doing pretty well, so I don't think that plays the biggest role. I think the biggest reason is because, well, the biggest two reasons, I guess I should say, is number one, I made a lot more money in 2024. I was working a job that I actually had a greater income than I do right now. So I took a step back in that sense. I was also working multiple jobs in 2024. So multiple sources of income, more sources of income, obviously, will most likely lead to higher income at the end of the year, right? Now, all that being said, there's another important factor. Last year, I was living with my parents for the entire year. I had basically little to no expenses whatsoever. I didn't have to pay for too much. My parents took care of rent, utilities. I think they were even taking care of my phone bill for a portion of last year. The only real thing that I had to take care of was car insurance, and I think that's honestly it. I didn't have student loans last year. I got rid of those, a few years back. So really all I had to take care of was car insurance. I mean, my parents even took care of food and all that kind of stuff. So really any money I spent was discretionary spending, and I was pretty much saving everything, and investing it. So that played a huge part in my drastic increase in my net worth in 2024 versus this year, where I was living with my parents basically up until the spring, and I finally decided it was time to move out of my parents' place, and just be, self-sufficient and, independent on my own. And I decided to take a leap of faith and do that. I basically quit my job, moved out of my parents' place, moved to an entirely different state without a job, keep in mind. Got myself an apartment, got myself a place, and decided to just start fresh. And that's what I did. But I say all that to say that, number one, there was a period of time where I wasn't making any money. Number two, I had a lot of expenses involved with the moving, although I tried to do it pretty cheaply. there is still inevitably going to be expenses involved in that. And then finally, when I did land a job in the summer, I'm making less than I was at my previous job because two reasons. Standard of living is just cheaper where I'm at compared to where I was at before. And then also, I did a bit of a career change. I'm working in a different field, and this field isn't as lucrative as the previous one. But again, this was a decision that I decided to make. I felt like it was best for myself. I felt like it was time for me to kind of, for lack of a better term, just grow up and be a man and take care of shit on my own. And while this may have been a step backwards financially speaking, I feel like in the long run, it's going to benefit me a lot because it's just allowed me to grow in different ways that might not necessarily be reflected by my finances, at least at this moment. But again, it's helped me mature. It's helped me take more responsibility. It's helped me with my finances in the sense of budgeting. And I'm happy with my decision. And, while I don't love my current job or the current company I'm working for, I'm able to pay my bills. I'm still able to save and invest. I'm maxing out my Roth IRA this year. I met a girl that is absolutely fantastic, and is now my girlfriend. So I never would have met her if I didn't decide to go ahead and move to a different state. So again, while my finances may have taken a slight hit due to my decisions this past year, my life has benefited in a lot of other ways. And it's allowed me the freedom to kind of take a leap of faith and start this YouTube channel. So again, a lot of different benefits to making those decisions. A lot of things have been affected negatively. Like I mentioned, my income and my net worth has not grown the way it did last year. And again, inevitably, when your net worth starts to grow in that sense, especially when you're at the level that I'm at, where it's not like I'm worth millions or anything like that, but I'm not worth 10 grand. Like I have a decent net worth for someone in their mid 20s. So a lot of my net worth increase is going to come from my income at this point in time. Whereas hopefully 10 or 20 years down the line, when I've been investing for 2 to 3 decades, my net worth will grow drastically just due to my investments every year. So that's part of the plan down the road. But for now, I just wanted to kind of talk about my finances, where I was at the beginning of the year versus where I'm at the end of the year. And I mean, put yourself in my shoes. Your net worth grows 50% last year and it only grows 10% this year. It can be kind of hard to stay motivated when you see that big of a difference year over year. But again, it could be worse, right? My net worth could have easily been smaller than or less than what it was a year ago if I didn't find a job and I was using my savings to pay for all my expenses. And maybe the market did really poorly and I lost, I was down 10% in my portfolio if we had a bad year. So a lot of things could have been much worse. So that's something that kind of keeps me positively thinking, I guess you can say, and optimistic for the future. But really, there's only so much you can control. And in my personal situation, what I'm doing to control is I am looking for other jobs that pay more. I'm hoping to get a raise at my current company if I do stay there for the time being, but I'm definitely keeping my options open. I'm working hard. I'm trying to be proactive with budgeting and saving. I'm making sure I max out at the bare minimum. I max out my Roth IRA. Preferably, I'm investing and saving much more than that. But maxing out the Roth IRA is absolutely mandatory. And I do have some other things in the works for next year as far as cutting more costs and saving more money, increasing my income, all that kind of stuff. So a lot that goes into it. I just think it's exciting to kind of look back at your personal finances, see where you were at a year ago, and then kind of see where you're at now. And if you don't track your finances, at the bare minimum, track your net worth, man. I would recommend doing it quarterly, at least every 3 months. Just track everything you own, all your bank accounts, all your savings, all your investments, and then just subtract whatever you owe, student loans, car loans, credit cards, all that kind of stuff, and just see what you're worth at the end of the day. And if you don't want to do it every 3 months, at least do it once a year so you can track that progress and see where you're at. I just love looking back at that information and seeing the kind of progress I've made. So that's it, man. I just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys on my personal financial situation overall. I think the end of the year is a good time to do that and to reflect on some of the decisions I've made and the changes that I've made, and use that information to get even better in the new year. So listen, I appreciate you guys checking in as always. If you're new here, I post every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern time, I post all kinds of content, personal finances, life experiences, really just anything I feel like talking about. I talk about it and throw it over some gameplay for you guys. So if you do like this kind of content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.